What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at The Creature Walks Among Us, the third and final part of the Gill-Man trilogy. And I'm just gonna say right off the bat, I think The Creature Walks Among Us is the weakest of the three movies. Now, that doesn't mean that The Creature Walks Among Us is a bad movie, because it isn't. But compared to the other two, I found this movie to be particularly kind of boring and just very, very sluggish to sit through. The basic premise of this story is that it involves a, let's be real, it involves a mad scientist who wants to pretty much make the Gill-Man more human than fish, which eventually does happen because the Gill-Man accidentally gets burned, and his gills start to turn to lungs, and he starts to have more human appearance and productive system. So, like, I think on paper, the whole idea of the Gill-Man pretty much becoming more human than amphibian is interesting, but I think when put into practice, it's kind of a boring movie. Uh, not to say that the actors all do a bad job, because they don't. From an acting standpoint, I think the cast is all pretty solid. It's just from a storyline perspective, I think this movie is the weakest, because the majority of this movie focuses on a love triangle between a wife, her jealous husband, and and a man who pretty much wants to get into the wife's pants. The whole movie's pretty much built around that love triangle, and it's really not all that interesting or intriguing, to be honest with you. This movie has a hard time trying to justify an existence as a third and concluding chapter. To be honest with you, I think Revenge of the Creature was more of a fitting end for this storyline, to be honest with you, because a third movie, especially with what we got, didn't really do much. This movie feels like it's trying really, really hard to justify the story that it's telling, but it's just finding a hard time trying to put it into practice. Maybe a lot has to do with the fact that Jack Arnold did not come back to direct this movie. This movie was in fact directed by his protege, John Sherwood, and nothing against John Sherwood. I thought from a directorial and production standpoint, the movie looks fine, it looks good. You know, it's in the same spirit and tone as the first two movies. It's just that the storyline behind this movie is weak, and it does have an interesting premise. Like, what would happen if the Gill Man embraced his more human side and abandoned his fish side? And I think and I think if anything, the more interesting scenes of this movie is pretty much the Gill Man, trying to adapt to a human life, and he just not being able to do it. And he definitely feels like a fish out of water, and you can see, the sorrowfulness and sadness with on the makeup itself. It's a very expressive makeup this movie has, and you can tell by the creatures, just by his eyes, that he's depressed, he's sad, he wants to go back to the ocean, he wants to go back to his home, he wants to go back to where he knows he feels safe. And knowing that he can never have that again, it's very, very sad and heartbreaking, and you feel for it. And I think the performance by the actor who played the creature this time around, I didn't really talk about the actors who played the creature. I think they all did a good job, but I think from a creature performance in this movie, I think the performance of the creature in this movie is much, much better, because you actually got to see a more human side of the creature, with him showing emotions and him missing his home. That was really well done, and some of the best scenes in this movie really are the ones that feature the creature. Of course, the scene where the creature does get burned, it is a very thrilling and exciting scene. I'm not gonna lie, and the scenes, like I said, the scenes of the creature trying to adapt to a human life is also really, really interesting, and also very, very sad at the same time. And the performance level is really, really good under mountains of makeup. Uh, I don't really care for the creature pretty much unintentionally looking like Frankenstein when he's put in clothes. That was kind of awkward. This entire movie takes place in a house, so the locations are pretty much limited to the Amazon and to a house. That's pretty much it. And near the end of the movie, the creature goes on his rampage. He kills a jealous husband. He kills a some other guy by throwing him into a window. And he knocks down an electrical fence and walks back to the ocean. And that final shot of the creature just looking completely despondent while looking onto the ocean is really heartbreaking and heart wrenching. And you really feel for the creature character, for the Gill Man. Like, He didn't ask for any of this. No, he's a creature of habit. He can't control himself. I like all that stuff. That stuff in this movie was fine. The overall directing of this movie is fine. The performances all around are all fine too. It's like it's just the overall storyline. When you take the creature out of it, it's kind of just biding its time. The whole love triangle eats up too much screen time, and I just don't care. The whole jealous angle of a husband is not that great. No, at least the love triangles in the first two movies were digestible because the movies didn't dwell on them, and those characters were actually likable. These characters, again, performance wise, they're all fine, but I just don't find them likable. I just don't find them interesting. They're just there for me. That's it. This movie is just to show the novelty of the creature acting more human, and that's pretty much it. But it takes pretty much 40 minutes to like it takes pretty much almost the entire runtime just to get to those moments of the movie that are the most interesting and the best parts of the movie. Everything else to me, kind of just filler. It's like I said, it's not horrible filler, but it's kind of boring. So pretty much with all that being said, as a concluding chapter to the Gill-Man trilogy, this is the weakest of the two movies, and I'm gonna give The Creature Walks Among Us a 6.5. It is on its own, it is a quality movie, but as part of the bigger picture, it's a weak link. And I don't care for it that much. I don't hate it, I just don't care for it. So a solid 6.5 for The Creature Walks Among Us. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe. And I will check you back next time for more.